Hi, my name's Maddie Gasson and welcome to this week's episode of True Crime Corner. On this week's episode, we're going to be exploring the case of Jerry Brudos. Jerry Brudos was an American serial killer and a necrophile. He committed the murders of at least 4 known women in Oregon between 1968 and 1969. It is said that Brudos' mother had wanted a girl and was displeased with the fact that she had had another son. She would constantly subject him to emotional and physical abuse. It is said Brudos had a fetish for women's shoes from the age of 5 after playing with stiletto-heeled shoes at a local junkyard. He also reportedly attempted to steal shoes from his first grade teacher. Not only this, but he had a fetish for women's underwear and he spent his teen years in and out of psychotherapy. As a teen, he began to stalk women, knocking them down unconscious and fleeing with their shoes. At age 17, he abducted and beat a young woman and threatened to stab her if she did not follow his sexual demands. He was then taken to a psychiatric ward for 9 months. There it was found that his sexual fantasies revolved around his hatred for women and hatred for his mother, and he was also diagnosed with schizophrenia. In 1961, Brudos married 17-year-old Darcy, and he made her do the housework naked in Septon heels while he took pictures, and he began complaining of migraines and blackouts. It was in this period that he experienced a transgender period as an escape mechanism. Brudos kept the shoes, underwear, and the bodies of the victims in his garage, and he would not allow his wife to enter without first announcing her arrival on the intercom that he had set up for them. Brudos' first murder was Linda Slauson, who was 19. Slauson was a door-to-door saleswoman who knocked on Brudos' door in January 1968. It was there that he lured her to the basement, knocked her out with a wooden plank and strangled her. He dressed her body in different female undergarments and shoes he had stolen. He then used a hacksaw to cut off her left foot, which he kept in a freezer and used to model as a collection of high heels. He disposed of the body in a Willamette River. Brudos' second murder was Karen Sprinkler, who was 18. Sprinkler was abducted at gunpoint outside a department store in May 1968. Brudos brought Sprinkler to his garage, and there he made her try on a collection of undergarments and pose while he photographed her, raped her, and then strangled her by hanging her by her neck in the garage. He then had sex with the dead body and cut off her breast to make plastic moulds. He then tied her body to a 6-cylinder car engine to nylon cord and threw it in a Willamette. Brudos' next murder was Jan Susan Whitney, who was 23. Her car had broken down on the interstate on November 26, 1968, and Brudos offered to drive her home in his excuse of calling a tow truck for her. While in the car, he strangled her with a leather strap and raped her post-mortem. He kept the body in his garage for days while he dressed, photographed, and had sex with it. He then cut off one of her breasts and made a resin mould that he used as a paperweight. He tied the body to a piece of railroad iron and threw it in the Willamette with Slauson's now rotted foot. It is said that Brudos would dress up in high heels and he would masturbate after committing the murders. This led to him receiving the name the Lust Killer and the Shoe Fetish Slayer. On April 21, 1969, Brudos attempted to abduct Sharon Wood at gunpoint in Portland, and then on April 22, 1969, he attempted to abduct Gloria Jean Smith, who was 15. After Brudos waiting countless days to try and abduct a woman, he finally abducted one on April 23, 1969, who was Linda Sale, who was 22. He abducted Linda from the shopping mall car park, and Brudos brought her to his garage. He raped and strangled her, and he then played with her corpse, and he also tried to revive her. He didn't want to cut off her breasts because supposedly they were too pink. He then tied the body to a car transmission with nylon cord and threw it in a Willamette. In May 1969, a fisherman found the bodies of Sale and Sprinkler in the Long Tom River. The police asked students at a nearby university campus about suspicious men, and one led to Brudos, who had phoned her several times to ask her for a date. Brudos gave the police a false address, which increased their suspicions. In his garage, the police found copper wire that was determined to have been cut with the same tool that had cut the cords used to tie the bodies. Brudos was then arrested, and he had made a full confession. On June 28, 1969, Brudos pled guilty to 3 first-degree murders. There he was sentenced to 3 consecutive terms of life imprisonment. Though he confessed to Slauson's murder, Brudos was neither tried or convicted for it because he did not make and keep photographs of the bodies, unlike in the other cases, but only of her foot. While incarcerated, Brudos had piles of women's shoes catalogues in his cell, and he wrote to major companies asking for them and claimed they were his substitute for pornography. He lodged countless appeals, including one in which he alleged that a photograph taken of him with one of his victims' corpses could not prove his guilt because it was not the body of the person he was convicted of killing. In 1955, the parole board told Brudos that he would never be released. Brudos died in prison on March 28, 2006 from liver cancer. At the time of his death, he was the longest incarcerated inmate in the Oregon Department of Corrections, a total of 37 years from 1969 to 2006. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode, and be sure to tune in for next week's episode of True Crime Corner, and don't forget to subscribe.